Okay, it's 2016. I'm going to do an updated how to start using cloth pads or cups. Last year, if you have seen that video or if you run across it or anything like that, I absolutely probably swear up and down I would never use cups, but things change. So, okay, you're thinking about switching. The first thing you need to decide, are you a tampon user or are you a pad user? Are you somewhere in between? That is going to determine what you need to get. Okay, so say you're just a tampon user. I would recommend getting a cup. This is my favorite cup, and it is the Menstro cup. If you are somewhere in the middle, I'm going to say you probably want to get a cup and a few cloth pads. If you are just a pad user, you're going to just want to get pads. So, the next thing you're going to want to think of is, how many am I going to need? So with a cup, and I do recommend you get at least a few liners if you want to just go full out cup, just because there is a learning curve with this, and it is possible while trying to figure out how to use it, how long before you need to dump it out, getting it inserted properly, you may leak. It's possible. So you may want to wear liners to start with, or you may want to wear them all the time. It may just make you more comfortable. I do when I wear a cup anyway, just because I have other issues, but it does make me feel a little bit better in case I would leak. So, and then for that, I would recommend getting a cup and at least maybe 3 liners if you're going to do that at minimum, and we're talking minimums here. You can obviously get as many cups as you want to. I have 4, and you can obviously get as many cloth pads as you want, but I'm letting you know like the minimum that you would probably need to switch. If you're somewhere in the middle, you are maybe going to look at a cup and you are going to look at some liners and some regular pads. So I would say get a cup, get 3 or 4 liners, and get 6 pads. That way you could use the cup and some liners, you could use some liners and just pads on your cycle, but with only 6 pads, you probably, depending on how heavy you are, you may definitely have to wash every day, just depending. And if you are going to go just cloth pads, I would recommend anywhere from 6 to 15 minimum, depending on how heavy you are. I like to go 15. I'm not super heavy, but it just makes me feel more comfortable, and I really like to change my pads most every time I go to the bathroom. So that is why I need 15. So in that 15, I break it up. I'm going to have a few liners, I'm going to have a few moderate, and a few heavy and overnight. And with 15, I could wash every day and a half maybe. Now in my stash, I do kind of have like 50, so I really don't have to worry about that. I have personally 4 cups and 50 some cloth pads, so it's definitely something that is kind of very fun to do, and all the materials are very fun to try and that kind of thing. The next thing you're going to want to think about before you buy is what size you're going to need. With a cup, most companies have a small and a large. This is the large Menstro cup. I have a small lunette, and you know, there is some difference in some small, and this is the small Smart cup against the large Menstro cup. And so the smaller cups are recommended for younger women or women in their teens, even women that don't have a heavy flow. The bigger cups are recommended for women like over 30, women who've had children, women with heavier flows, just because they are a bit bigger. And with a cup, you are going to want to check your cervix, and the cervix will be different if you check it on your period and off of your period, and even throughout your period it can change to where it sits. You're going to want to check it on your finger. If you can go to here, and everybody's finger's different obviously, so if you can't fit your finger in very far, you have a very low cervix. If you can go to somewhere in the middle, you know, it's kind of higher, and then if you just can't feel it at all, you have a very high cervix, which most of the time mine is very high during my period. It does come down towards the end a little bit to where I can touch it, so mine is very high. So you'll definitely want to think about that as far as cups, because if yours is lower, you are going to have a harder time using the taller cups, and you may have to cut the stem off. With the pads, I recommend taking a disposables that you already currently use, overnight, day, liners, measure them out. You know, see what size you already like, and get the measurements so that you can know kind of what to look at. You're also going to want to kind of judge the absorbency you think you're going to need. Now, I think when switching, unless you're just somebody that is very, very heavy, it's sometimes hard to actually realize how heavy of a bleeder you are. I thought I was kind of a heavy bleeder, but when I switched over, I kind of realized that I really wasn't, not even close. So sometimes it's kind of hard to tell, you know, unless you have other things to base it off of, or you're just like, I use a pad every hour. That's definitely a heavy bleeder, but that you're going to want to take that into account. So you're going to want to look at maybe super for overnight, you have heavies for overnight, heavies for daytime, moderate, lights. I have gone more towards the moderates and the heavies just because even though I'm a light bleeder, I can go a lot longer with those if I need to without leaking. Okay, so once you have considered all of that stuff, the cups, the pads, how many, what sizes, where am I going to buy? Okay, so the menstrual cup you can buy on Amazon, and it is not that expensive. It's under $20, I believe, or just right at. So I will leave a link for that, and in the next month or so, I may have a giveaway coming up for one of these, maybe, so stay tuned. And you can buy them on several different pad shop places and all that kind of stuff, so I'll link places for that. I'm not as familiar. A lot of cup companies have their own websites, that kind of thing, so I'll link several of those. I'll link my favorites below for you. As far as pads goes, there's all kinds. There's the bigger names like Pink Lemonade, Tree Hugger, Glad Rags, those kind, the bigger names. They're expensive, and I don't necessarily think that they're always worth, you know, the more expensive ones. Not those directly, but the more expensive name brands are really worth more. I find that I've really fallen in love with Etsy makers like Heidi's Hearts Handmaids, and there's just so many out there, and I will link those for you. Those are Etsy shops. And when I first started, I found Pink Lemonade, and I was in love with the idea of cloth pads. But then in turn, I found out that there were better shapes out there for me. There's pads in all sorts of shapes. You've got something like this, then you've got something this, you've got total square edge, rounder ones, and there's all sorts of different lengths available. And I will link my favorite nighttime pads. I will link my favorite day pads, my favorite shops. I will link that all for you guys below. So I hope that you've kind of found this helpful. It is very long and I'd love to get more in depth, and maybe I will do another part. So thank you for watching.